Welcome to the New York City Housing Authority's public hearing on the significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan. I am Janelle Hudson, Director of NYCHA's Resident Engagement Department, and I will be your moderator this evening. We have sign language interpreters for the hearing impaired, as well as Spanish, Russian, Chinese, Korean, and Bengali translators. Interpreters, would you please come to the microphone to identify yourselves?
Hello, my name is Victor Kuznetsov. I'm a Russian interpreter. Здравствуйте, я русский переводчик. Меня зовут Виктор Кузнецов. Если вам нужен будет перевод, пожалуйста, возьмите оборудование, которое находится за столом в конце зала. Спасибо.
Hola, buenas noches. Gracias por acompañarnos. Yo soy Gianna Nicasio, intérprete traductora de la Unidad de Servicios de Idiomas. Tenemos servicio de interpretación en español para todo el que lo necesite. Gracias.
各位晚上好，我们今晚会为大家提供中文的翻译服務。如果有需要的話，請到前面的台子上領取耳機，謝謝。各位晚上好，我哋今晚會為大家提供中文嘅翻譯服務。如果有需要嘅話，可以到前台嗰度領取呢個耳機，多謝。
হাই, আমি উইলি নন্দী। আমি আপনাদেরকে এখানে বাংলায় ইন্টারপ্রেট করার জন্য সহযোগিতা করতে আসছি। তো আমি আপনাদেরকে বাংলায় ট্রান্সলেট করে হেল্প করব।
Thank you all for taking the time to attend. We know how busy you are and appreciate that you have made this a priority. In accordance with Section 5A of the United States Housing Act of 1937 as amended, housing authorities are required to develop, with review and input from residents and the general public, annual plans for the coming year, and then gather input on the plans from residents and the general public. Federal law allows a public housing authority to modify or amend its annual plan. Significant amendments to the plan must also be brought to a public forum to provide residents and the general public the opportunity to comment. On December 27, 2018, NYCHA published a draft significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan PHA for public review. NYCHA is amending its annual plan for fiscal year 2019 in order to include a statement on implementing the new public housing income limit requirements mandated under the Federal Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act, HOTMA, and HUD rules. Housing authorities have the option under HOTMA to evict households with incomes over a certain limit or allow them to remain in public housing and pay higher rent. NYCHA will allow these households to remain in public housing, paying higher rent according to a HUD formula described on page 16 of the draft significant amendment. NYCHA is also requesting HUD approval for a retention action pursuant to 2 CFR Part 200 for the remaining developments in the LLC2 portfolio, 344 East 28th Street and Wise Towers in Manhattan, and Boulevard and Linden in Brooklyn. Through this action, all units in the developments will be operated outside the federal housing program. Families will be transitioned to Section 8 assistance. Families ineligible for Section 8 assistance will be allowed to remain in place and pay no more than 30% of their adjusted gross income towards rent. As part of this significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan, in order to improve the financial stability of NYCHA's RAD conversions, NYCHA is requesting HUD approval to use the Section 18 disposition process for some or all units within the developments currently approved or being considered for RAD conversion. Resident rights will remain consistent across all developments, and residents will continue to pay no more than 30% of adjusted gross income towards rent. NYCHA is also requesting approval to use the Section 18 disposition process for up to 25% of the units in the aggregate for the following developments previously approved for RAD conversion: Bushwick 2, Groups B and D, Hope Gardens and Palmetto Gardens. Resident rights will remain consistent across all developments, and residents will continue to pay no more than 30% of adjusted gross income towards rent. Bushwick 2, Groups A and C, and Bushwick 2, CDA Group E, will be entirely conveyed through Section 18 as part of the RAD conversion of the Hope Gardens Public Housing Consolidation. The review period began on December 27, 2018. We encourage residents and advocates to provide written comments on the significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan. You can provide comments via fax and email, through the regular mail, or this evening at the public hearing. The significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan was made available for public review at NYCHA's principal office at 250 Broadway, on NYCHA's website, at each local property management office, at all management and lease housing borough offices, and at 4 designated community senior centers. Copies of the executive summary of significant amendment and the significant amendment are available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Russian for review at the tables outside of this auditorium. The purpose of this public hearing is to obtain the views, comments, and recommendations of the public on the significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan. The amendment is not final and will be modified before they are submitted to HUD. Please understand, however, that this evening is not intended as a forum for a verbal exchange. NYCHA representatives will not engage in discussions with the speakers, nor will they respond to questions. They are present to hear what you have to say about the significant amendment. This public hearing is being live streamed over the internet and will be available to view on NYCHA's website. Joining us tonight, we have NYCHA board members Derek Cephas, Vice Chair, Zaire Dinzy Flores, not here, Victor A. Gonzalez, member, and our newest board member who joined the board just last week, Maria Torres Springer, and Jacqueline Young, member. Vito Mastrchulo, NYCHA's general manager, will be joining us in progress. We hope that everyone who has a comment will be able to express it at this meeting this evening. Let's go over the following ground rules to make this event run smoothly. If you wish to speak, you must first fill out a speaker's slip. These are available in the entrance at the table marked Speaker Sign-In. Please line up at one of the microphones in the aisles and wait for your turn to speak. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to speak. On the stage, you will see a timer with 3 lights. When you begin to speak, the green light will go on and the timer will begin to count down. When the yellow light is lit, you should begin to finish your remarks. When the red light is turned on, your time at the microphone is over. You can submit written comments at the check-in table in the back. Numbered speaker slips are non-transferable. If you are not present or do not wish to speak when your name and number is called, you will forfeit your opportunity to speak. The hearing is being recorded and transcribed by a stenographer, so please speak only from the microphones in the aisles. Please begin by identifying yourself and your development or affiliation. Please remember that we are here to comment on the significant amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual plan. Demeaning, vulgar, or discriminatory language, as well as personal comments or attacks on resident representatives, public attendees, or NYCHA staff will not be tolerated. As moderator, I reserve the right to immediately move on to the next speaker in line if I deem comments as inappropriate. Please be considerate of your neighbors and follow these directions. We are here to consider issues that are of concern to everyone, not issues that concern only a single resident or individual. If you have an issue that concerns only you or your apartment, we have staff tables outside of this room with personnel who can take your concerns. Please complete a resident comment card at one of these tables. Distributing materials is not allowed in the auditorium. If you have leaflets or brochures you would like to hand out, please leave them at the general information station outside this room. Resource tables offering information on programs and opportunities that may be of interest to you are also set up in the hall. In particular, we encourage you to learn more about NYCHA's community engagement and partnerships and NYCHA's emergency management. So let's begin. As I call your name, please make your way to the microphones in the center of the auditorium. First, we have Pamela Mondesi from Ingersoll, followed by Babakor Diallo from Van Dyke. Ms. Mondesi?
I'm here. The mic ain't ready. Y'all want me to shout?
No. Are you able to make your way down?
Oh, he got it.
Okay.
Good evening,
Good evening.
everyone. My name is Pamela Mondesi, and I live in Ingersoll Houses. First, I'd like to thank Carolyn Jasper, Sylvia Aud, and Stephanie Davis for stopping Mr. Winans, the housing manager, from terrorizing me about my rent. I applaud you. For the first time in 2 years and 5 months, I finally got a rent statement with the correct amount of rent. So I thank you. I'm the lady who came to y'all on Halloween in costume. Remember me? Pam? Anyhow, I wanted to say that and applaud you because it took 2 years and 5 months to get it straight. So in January, I got a decent, normal rent statement. Thank you. I'm just going to say this. There was something else I wanted to say, but I met with 2 of your board members or people, and they're going to handle it. So you don't have to hear that tonight. Just to say thank you.
Babakor Diallo from Van Dyke, followed by Pamela Coleman from St. Nicholas. Okay, Ms. Coleman.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. I understand that you want to push forward in modifying NYCHA, but before you go forward, you have to address the current situations. Like in St. Nicholas, there's no, before you start to move to progress, you got to stop to see how far you've gotten before you move forward. You have to go backwards or stay current. And what I mean by that is not having groundkeepers in St. Nicholas. I'm sorry, my name is Pamela, I'm the vice president again. The groundkeepers in St. Nick, there aren't any. I don't understand how you have 14 stories each, and there's absolutely no groundkeepers at all. You have big tree stumps hanging out there. I just don't understand. I'm here to complain about that and see, could someone do something to help me figure out how could St. Nick get cleaner, and how could we prevent these big, huge trunk trees from falling and killing someone, because they're still laying out there and they've been out there for months.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. You can make your way to the back, one of the tables, and we have staff back there that can assist you. Victor Bach from Community Service Society, followed by Alex Schwartz.
I'm Victor Bach with Community Service Society. We're submitting written comments jointly with several other organizations. Community Voices Heard, Good Old Lower East Side Goals, the Legal Aid Society, Local Initiative Support Corporation of New York City, and the New York Housing Conference. Our comments focus on the changes to the PAC plan that are contained in the significant amendment, and with the 10-year plan for the conversion of 62,000 units from NYCHA ownership to alternative ownership. I'm just going to have time to mention a couple of the issues that are contained in the written comments. The first is about resident input to the RAD's capital needs assessment. When NYCHA releases a request for proposals, an RFP to developers in order to carry out the conversion, that RFP contains the scope of rehabilitation work to be done by the developer. In the process of pulling together the capital needs assessment, residents are not directly consulted. The capital need assessment is carried out by a third party that HUD and NYCHA agree on, an expert, and in consultations with NYCHA management, those needs are included in the assessment. We think that it's outrageous that residents who've been living with failing conditions for years are not being directly consulted about the RAD capital needs assessment before it goes into the RFP, and secondly, that they are not being given an opportunity to review and comment on the capital needs assessment before it's finally released. Secondly, we're concerned about permanent affordability under some of these conversions. NYCHA plans to make extensive use of Section 18, HUD Section 18 disposition program, not just the RAD rental assistance demonstration program. And although those two are presented usually by NYCHA to residents as packed, a kind of vague definition that doesn't distinguish between the two programs, they are substantially different. And one way in which they're different are in terms of guarantees of permanent affordability. There's more to be read in the written comments, but we think, first of all, that residents ought to know when a conversion is taking place, whether they're being converted under RAD or Section 18. Right now, we just speak generally of PACT or in general about RAD.
We'll take your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Schwartz from the New School, followed by Cynthia Tibbs from Wasora Brownstone.
Thank you, Alex Schwartz from the New School. Just a couple questions, some of which follow up on Victor Bach's comments. One question I have about Section 8 disposition is what happens when the original tenants move out? Are they replaced with people on the public housing wait list? Are the people with the same incomes of the original tenants? So what is the procedure for replacing tenants? In other contexts, my understanding with tenant protection vouchers, the new tenant may have very different income characteristics. Second question has to do with what assurance is there that there'll be enough funding from HUD to fund all the Section 8 disposition, and what happens if there isn't enough? Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Tibbs, Wasora.
My name is Cynthia Tibbs. I live at the Wasora Brownstones, which is part of the Wise and Wise consolidation on the Upper West Side. On Father's Day Sunday 2016, NYCHA executives decided to knock on our door on Father's Day to tell us that we are being placed into the PAC program. 2 days later came the robocalls, then a meeting on how everything from pipes to floors, cosmetic upgrades would be done. In the 2-year span between then and now, NYCHA has gone radio silent on us. The only information we were able to have, or the only meeting we had, was between Community Service Society, Legal Aid, and the Manhattan Borough President's Office on gathering us information. There has been no transparency at all on behalf of NYCHA. Everybody else that made decisions at that original roundtable in 2016 will not give me any information on what their part was in doing the PAC program. I've gotten excuses such as, oh, we only played a small part, to absolutely no information from my community, my councilwoman for District 6. I'm sorry, I lost my, you have allowed this mayor to call the shots in using this play-to-pay contributors and Wavecrest management to steamroll over PACT and RAD. Wavecrest is nothing but a slumlord, just as NYCHA. Instead of allowing grassroots organizations a priority to even bid on us, the mayor seems to be making all the shots. You make promises regarding 30% of the rent and no increases, when in reality, Chicago found out the hard way. We all know in RAD and in PAC, there's a clause called shortfalls in revenue. It's also called the doomsday clause. That means private management can go into full market value and you shoot your rents up if they're not making enough money off of capital. God forbid we have another government shutdown and they stop paying on the Section 8 portion, we could all wind up in default and be pushed out of our home. So congratulations on letting the mayor put new homeless shelters in place, because we're probably going to need them by then. Anyone who has been a part of NYCHA that has closed your eyes and taken a deaf ear and let this mayor run rampant at the price of us, I ask you, how much were we worth? What was the payout to treat us like dirt? Because it's not right. Thank you.
Mary McGee from Fulton, and then Jackie Lara.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary McGee. I live at Fulton Houses. There's a few things I would like to state. I want to know why NYCHA stopped doing these meetings in every borough. Look at the outcome of people with all the changes that is happening in NYCHA. You don't have the residents that should be out. But when you did it from borough to borough, there were people, residents were coming out and voicing themselves. So it's not about your convenience, it's about ours. The next thing I want to state is this RAD program, NYCHA's not being truthful to the residents. You're not explaining, you're just putting it out there and we have to swallow it. RAD is a program where if I'm working and my daughter's working and you change my development of RAD and my daughter moves out, my rent is going to stay the same as if my daughter was there. So how can I afford a rent with an income that I no longer have? So we're losing our safety net of NYCHA. Decisions are being made without residents being informed. NYCHA is depending too much on a TA president to give information that's not being relayed to the residents, but holding it to themselves. Because I believe if this information was given to the residents and explained to them exactly what this program is really about, this room would have been packed. The next thing is, I heard our TA president in our last meeting last month stated that Fulton Houses, which is on none of the lists of the mayors or NYCHA, is going to be a development that's going to be affected by RAD. They were talking about knocking down a building on 19th Street, one of our other buildings on 16th Street, a building where they just got money to build the playground, to renew the playground. How is this possible? But yet, we, the residents of Fulton Houses, know nothing. We found out after all these plans were made, after supposedly a developer is already there. NYCHA, communicate with the residents. Give us the information. Don't rely on anybody else. When you want your rent, you don't go to our TA, you come to us. The next thing is, it feels like NYCHA's abandoning us. You've had these problems. We're doing the plan for the fiscal year. You allocate money for developments that never see the money. You allocate it for this development, and boom, when time comes for them to get their boilers, their heaters, their elevators fixed, oh, we use the money for this development. No, use the money for what you're stating you're gonna use it on. It's only right. Fulton Houses needs elevators. Our boilers, we're on a steam system. It's gonna fail soon. We're not even anywhere on your list for allocated money to make repairs. It's shameful. You cannot abandon one development for another. You need to treat us equally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Jackie Laura. Can we get a mic to Ms. Laura, please?
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Lara, and I'm from also Fulton Houses. Yes, we did hear the rumor that our buildings were being sold, and I am part of that building that's being sold, and RTA told us that 72 families will have to be moved out within 2 years to other developments. And I'm here to find out who signed this off and never told us about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. Darina Harris from Van Dyke.
Hi, good evening. My name is Darina Harris, and I'm from Van Dyke Houses. And I'm here today because I just want to let NYCHA know that I put in for the recertification, for the annual recertification that we do every year, that I'm disabled, and I went down to the office and I did it at the Van Dyke Housing Management Office. I did it in November. I have now received 2 letters from 250 Broadway stating that they want to terminate me because of non-compliance. Now, when I called up my Van Dyke management office, it seems like also that there's a problem there. First of all, they don't answer the phone. You have to keep calling and calling, you know, and then when I called there, the young lady informed me that my housing assistance that I did it with is no longer there. She left in December. But I did all the paperwork in November, so what I'm saying is that it seems like that now I have to do all of this over again because of the fact that my housing assistant left and didn't do her job, first of all, and then I didn't even know that the housing assistant had left. I think we need a better communication with our management office with the residents of Van Dyke. You know, it should be whereas if your housing assistant is leaving, then we should be informed. You know, and as far as the development itself, I've been there since 1955, and I noticed that housing, now New York City Housing is building a lot of buildings, new buildings, selling property. So it seems like we are being overcrowded as well, too. You know, it seems like that we just, every little space that we had, it seems like this buildings are being built up. And also when they said that, when they was building them, that the people who live in Van Dyke houses would have first dibs as far as moving into the new buildings, but I don't think that that's true. I think that that was just something that they just told us. You know, so we need changes in Van Dyke with our management office. Better communication and better services for the residents.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. We'll have someone come talk to you about your concern with housing assistance. Diane Williams from Atlantic Terminal.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Williams from Atlantic Terminal Development in Brooklyn. I'm just so amazed at how much there is a lack of control with NYCHA concerning the residents. When I first moved into NYCHA, I thought, a place of oasis. To get away from the high rents elsewhere, I was able to find relief when I moved into NYCHA, but since that time, there have been several issues that have seemed to have gotten worse and worse. There's a lack of staffing. We have crumbling infrastructure. In my building, there is a crack in the large cement column that's holding the building up in the front, and it goes through all the bricks. There is it seems to be ineffective fiscal management at NYCHA because of the lack of staffing. There's no funding for repairs. There's also a lack of transparency and communication. Like those who came before me said, we don't hear anything. And the TA presidents, maybe they don't even understand what's going on themselves, so they're not able to effectively communicate that to the residents. There's also safety issues with the rats that has never been dealt with. Rats on a regular, and they burrow down under the building and into the ground. If there is a guarantee of an improvement in quality with this move, then I'm all for it. But it seems disingenuous to tell us to accept this, and then you haven't done your due diligence in terms of bringing it up to a better quality. I would have more trust in your decision making if I saw good faith. Also, the monitoring of the proposed rehabs for these developments, we don't know how it's being monitored, what's being monitored, how the vendors are chosen who do this work, but yet, there is scaffolding that stays up for years and no work happens. So essentially, this is a steamroller decision without regard to whom it affects. And I, for one, am very, very concerned about my development and those throughout the city of New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Shepard from Bayview, followed by Lisa Kenna, Van Dyke. We need a mic for Ms. Shepard.
Thank you. Good evening. Yes, my name is Sandra Shepard. I'm a resident of Bayview Houses in Canarsie. And they have this construction bill that the mayor has a sign up saying he paid billions of dollars for these people to do this work. Those construction workers damage my property. They damage my air conditioners so bad. We had to suffer all the spring and the entire summer of 2018. When it was brought to the attention of the management office, I was told to put my name on a list. I was number 6. Nothing was done. The manager that is there now, Ms. Waite, she's telling me that you people come in here and think that these construction people have nothing to do but replace your air conditioner. I have nothing to do with those people. I'm a person, I'm a resident, I pay my rent, and I would like my air conditioners to be replaced by the construction company through Bayview Houses Management. They've been refusing constantly. Bayview Houses has tampered with my rental account. Bayview Houses is charging me rent that I don't owe. They had me in court harassing me about rent, and I'm bringing proof my rent is paid. They've changed the model now to bring in an HPD inspector into my apartment, taking pictures without my permission, taking them to court, and saying that my children and I have dirtied and ragged up this apartment. My apartment has been packed up since April 2018 because of a stipulation to do work that they have not done, nor have they completed. I have not had use of my living room, dining room in over a year. Prior to that, I had no use to my bedroom for over 2 years for work that they are not doing. They go to court with pictures and with pictures of another apartment saying it's my apartment where they did repairs. How can they get away with these lies? What is going on at Bayview Houses? No answers. This is silent. This is a...
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Shepard. Next, we have Lisa Kenner. After Ms. Kenner will be Maria Forbes.
Mike is on. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to say Happy New Year. I ain't come to beat you up this evening. I just came to ask a question. My name is Lisa Kenner, and I am the Resident Association President, and I think I am a good president. This is a non-paying job. I brought 10 of my residents here tonight because I want them to see what really goes on, because a lot of residents don't come out. And I think I have to blame us. If we more got together, housing couldn't do what they do, but we don't stick together. This one here, this one there. So I can't just beat up on them because we allowed them to do this. If we all got together, you know what we'd be? They all have to do their work. Some of them don't do the work, so they don't need to be here. I ain't gonna call them names. But anyway, I was looking at the amendment. I'm gonna stay on the agenda. I was looking at the amendment, and I would like someone to explain what's over-income residents. What does that mean? And also, what is public to private ownership? I didn't receive an annual book that I could look through and see, but I received this to know what was it about, but I didn't know what it was about. I can't explain something to somebody else if I don't know. So I need somebody to explain that to me, because you're putting it in the book and you're putting it on paper, but I don't think a lot of residents understand what it is. And I have been to every last meeting here. I didn't come to beat up anybody because I know everybody email, but I came to find out, what does this mean? I understand that you're going RAD and stuff like that. There's a lot of developments going to go. The only way it can stop, and they don't have enough money because you need $26 billion to keep it up. But I need somebody to explain this to me so when I go home, I can explain it to my residents, because I don't know what's over income. I know some people in Van Dyke pay $1,900. I don't know if one day we're going to turn it to RAD and Section 8, where that means that people that's under the income can stay. What happened to those people that's paying $1,800 and $1,900? So I need somebody to explain to me what that is. And I thank all my people that come from Van Dyke, and hope this won't be your last time for coming.
Thank you, Ms. Kenner. We'll make arrangements to come out and meet with you. Maria Forbes, followed by Audrey Henley.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Maria Forbes, and I was yield number 15, Audrey Henry's time, so I'll have 6 minutes to say what I have to say. I want to say that this is the most disrespectful, no courtesy, professionalism, and respect board that I've ever seen, or administration that I've ever seen in the Housing Authority in my 30 years in public housing. Not to respond to the residents of questions that they are importantly asking you. That is so disrespectful. But I've never seen none of these board members come out to any developments and assist the residents, because they was presidents themselves. And that's very, very bad of you to sleep with
So, Ms.
yourself
Forbes,
and know that I'm
as I
speaking.
said in the beginning, this is not an exchange. We've been through this before.
Listen. I'm
And it's
speaking.
3
You taking up
minutes.
my time. I don't even
And
care if they don't respond to
we're
me.
not discussing individuals. Please stick your comments,
I'm
stick
saying
to the
that
significant
whole
amendments.
board, the whole New York City Housing Authority staff is disrespectful.
Okay, we're not discussing individuals, Ms. Forbes.
Excuse me, the whole housing authority. I didn't say nothing
We're
about
going
individuals.
to move on.
You're going to give me another 3 minutes because you interrupted.
I will not
my
give you
speech.
another 3 minutes. You have your time to comment on the significant amendment.
I didn't need you to answer me then if you wasn't going to answer nothing.
I'm
How about
letting
that?
you know that we're not here
need
to
an
talk
answer,
about
miss.
individuals. We can continue and receive your comments about the significant amendment, or we can move on to the next speaker, Ms. Forbes.
Discussion on the amendment. Are you recording? Thank you very much. So, as I stated, this is a very disrespectful body of New York City Housing Authority staff, and I also want to comment on several things pertaining to the amendment. Yes, these landlords or developers are here for a profit. They LLCs, they're here for a profit. Yes, residents will income themselves out of the Section 8 program. Understand that. That's what they mean about that income situation that you're stating, miss. I received a notice from attending the red body, citywide body, indicating that these landlords are not coming in to do interior or exterior work because HUD is not going to even allow them to do that. So the piping will remain raggedy and ratchet, and the wiring will not get addressed. All they're going to do is dress up the outside, and you're going to be dirty on the inside. That's like putting on new clothes with a dirty outfit. So let me explain to you that also this RAD program is not going to be suitable because we will lose our protection and our rights. So I'm going to let you know that when you come to Claremont Consolidated, we're going to have a real estate attorney. We're going to have our own physical needs assessment because apparently NYCHA is not doing the correct needs assessment that they need to be doing.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Forbes.
Audrey Henry gave me her time.
Next, we have Evelyn Sanchez from
Audrey
Ocean
Henry,
Hill
come down here,
Apartments.
please. She gave me her time to speak. You're not going to let Audrey Henry speak?
The speaker slips are non-transferable. I explained that.
I didn't hear that. I wasn't here.
Evelyn Sanchez. Evelyn Sanchez, Ocean Hill Apartments.
Y'all are still disrespectful.
After Ms. Sanchez, we will have Carmen Whitaker from Howard.
Hi, I'm from Ocean Hill. I'm the TA president from Ocean Hill Apartments. My complaint is we have a scaffold on one of the buildings for 3 years. Apparently, no one cannot give me an answer why the scaffold is still there. They say they're going to fix the roof, but nothing is being done. Number two, I feel that New York City Housing should lock the roof doors of these buildings. I had an incident in December that somebody jumped off the roof. I don't want to hear that it's because fire hazard, because if you know by the rules of New York City Housing, you're supposed to go down those stairs, not go up to the roof. Another thing is the fire department does not reach up there. So my question is, why can't they close the roof door so we could have these people of not jumping out the roof anymore? That's it.
Thank you. Carmen Whitaker from Howard, followed by Robert Wangel from LaGuardia.
Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Whitaker, and I'm cold. I've been cold since 2005. Now, this week I've had heat, but every other week after that, I have not. And I want to know why. Nobody's explaining to me why we don't have any heat. They just say, pay your rent. I paid my rent, and I want what I paid for.
Can we have someone speak with Ms. Whitaker? Robert Wanigel from LaGuardia. followed by Monique Thomas.
Good evening, Board. Robert Wanago. I am here not to complain about rats that are running over my toes, but I would like to point out that my mother moved into NYCHA 60 years ago when she was making only $1,200 a year, not a week, a year. And we've been living there since. Basically, my observation is that every single week or twice a week, NYCHA is in the papers with pointing out that they are defrauding the residents. They lie about paint, about lead, about rents, about everything. So this is kind of ridiculous because you have this nice fancy meeting which only indicates that HUD ordered you to do it. But you do not want the HUD to monitor what you're doing because you're doing the shady operations. And you know, the Injustice Department is charging with RICO charges against honest citizens. They should throw in RICO charges against NYCHA. That will find out who is doing what and to whom and why is it everything so bad. The management, there's no management. This is mismanagement. I mean, if there was a management, we wouldn't have the broken down elevators, the ceilings, the pipes, everything else. So I wonder, who is you call management? I mean, these people don't know anything about anything. And after 60 years, I can say that you guys are newbies. You came to NYCHA to collect the paychecks, but do nothing besides, and pretend that you're doing something and making these big meetings for nothing to placate the federal government who's telling you that you're not doing the right job. So whatever you're doing, you're not doing the management, you're doing mismanagement, and they should throw RICO charges against your company. That is all I can say. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Monique Thomas, followed by Lourdes Camacho.
All right, hello. I'm Monique Emmeline Thomas. I've been a resident of NYCHA since July of 1975. I live in Boston Secor Houses, which I believe is a very beautiful housing establishment. What breaks my heart is the fact that I don't believe there's anybody else from Boston Secor here. I may be wrong about that, but this is part of what causes the problem. It has to do with people who have either given up or they're apathetic. And when they have the opportunity to come together and to state what are the frustrations, people just tend not to be here. We know that the proposals are very, very thick, a lot of reading to do, but one of my suggestions is that when tenants association meetings are held, that the managers get together and explain what these proposals are. People really don't know, and if they have computers, some people don't know how to use them, they don't have access. I mean, I go into my computer, I actually print things out, I read things, but they're difficult for most people to understand, and the idea that we have the opportunity to speak, and what comes out is just a lot of frustration about what it's like to live in housing and all the things that have not been done. I myself have problems with that. I don't understand what the problem is with putting in tickets, and when you check a week later, they claim the number's not there. Or I come home and I find that there are roaches crawling on my bathtub because they're coming out of the pipes in the walls. Where these things are happening, the idea is that it has to be brought to the attention right away rather than to be upset about it and complain among your friends. Housing is a great establishment, and the idea is that if we were to stick together and represent that, it will survive. If otherwise, it's going to depreciate. The buildings are being allowed to deteriorate. I come home and there are prowlers in the hallways. People have to be taught to have accountability. They're curbing their dogs, they're not cleaning up after them. There's litter being thrown out of windows on the lawns. I said, it's sad to be able to complain to management and say what they're not doing, but we also have to have a sense of pride in where we live so that we can't have the axis thrown at us for having caused a lot of the problem ourselves. There is a lot of fear going on. I know that my rent is higher than it's ever been. I'm a middle-class worker. I'm saving up for retirement. Things are tight, but I try to do the best that I can. When it comes to the people who are making above income, I believe from what I read that people have the choice of either staying in their apartments or they have to pay the higher rent. They're going to be given a choice. It's not that people are going to be kicked out. But I'd like to say that I feel very privileged to be here. And if you feel that NYCHA needs to be represented by the tenants, get people together, say we're coming down and we need to discuss, make it into something where we can be heard. As a very group of special people, I think NYCHA, the concept of having affordable houses for working people is a great idea, and it should be allowed to survive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lourdes Camacho, followed by Diane Brittle from Lillian Wald Houses.
Hi, my name is Lourdes Camacho. I'm a resident of Amsterdam Houses. My question to you guys is, the draft, why didn't you bring one in Spanish? Because I also came down here for my godmother who lives in Fulton Houses, and she doesn't read English, so she wanted me to bring her one in Spanish. So my concern is, why didn't you bring one in Spanish as well?
Thank you. May you make your way to the back so that we can answer your question? Diane Brittle, Wald Houses, followed by A.M. Goodrich.
That's Diane Britt Ellis.
Thank you, Ms. Britt.
Is it okay if I stand where I am?
Do you need us to bring a mic? Yes.
Thank you. You know, I'm here tonight. I hope there's a lawyer around someplace. I have a question, and one of my questions is, why is there no longer community operations and is now resident engagement? Also, what happened to our bylaws? I mean, we changed our bylaws. We went through everything, and they got lost in the law department. Now, all of a sudden, you know, since this resident engagement, we had an ongoing grievance and investigation. I still have documents of these investigations that were going on. Our president passed away, but she gave us the information. I want to know, and I think the people are entitled to know, why all of a sudden it's no longer community operations, it's resident engagement.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Britt. Denise Gass will come to speak with you and explain. Thank you. A.M. Goodrich, followed by Mildred Martinez.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. So I'm an anti-gentrification ambassador in Brooklyn and for CY for over a decade. So right now we're in the mix of the so-called housing crisis, but also we have a corruption. Number one, they heard about a complaint what's going on with Fulton Houses, that Johnny Stevens been promoted, been activated for many, many years so far, that they take away the green space. You talk about take away the public space for like to create affordable housing. But we're affordable for who? Nobody. So, and number two, talk about Queensbridge houses. We heard a lot of issues going on in Queensbridge. I watch it all the time, like for the news or also on YouTube for my favorite news channels. And all of a sudden, they talk about Amazon. Amazon talk about, oh, it's going to be benefit to the resident, but they keep lying and lying and lying. This is not a game. It's not a joke. These are people, low, moderate income people who live in a project since the 1930s or many years. It's like a lot of like African American, mostly Hispanic people are living in a complex because they won't benefit. Oh, they're not going to benefit the local resident, but they lie to the people who live in Queensbridge. In fact, not just Queensbridge, but also women in Astoria. But the mother promote Amazon, it benefits like the outsiders who don't represent the people in his neighborhood. That is so completely disgusting. And number three, the issue with the Bushwick plan, because we've been fighting ever since the development, since the redevelopment plan for Bushwick. But also we did work on with Whole Garden, but they never heard about it, or debriefing, ever since they talk about what's gonna happen. We talk about Bushwick, the three Bushwick, A, B, and C. With the right, I've been to the committee board 4 meeting, and they talk about how to approve it in their Bushwick development site. But back to the Whole Gardens issue, that they have to be having like a brief town hall to discuss, to bring the residents and the community and the activists to the table. Number 4, you have to hold the rent. Hold the rent. Because you don't make the repairs of men, hold your rent to hold the bureaucrat accountable. And number 5, due to the universal disgrace, the mayor and the governor will be friends and cronies and crumbs. They don't want to be friends and put Amazon on IC. For what? For who? This is called a game of bureaucratic corruption. Stop playing games with the bureaucratic corruption and listen to the people. Power to the people.
Mildred Martinez, followed by Herman Francis. Is Ms. Martinez here? Okay, we're going to move on to Herman Francis.
Greetings, everyone. It warms the heart good when the neighborhood comes out on particular issues. I'm a resident of Browns County, my Haven Houses, also was a member of Community Board 1, and also sat on the last school board, District 7, 1 year as vice president to Bloomberg ran us out of there. Well, also, I remember my mother and father, after my father came out of the military in World War II and became a city worker, moving to Patterson Houses, where tonight the East Regional Director of HUD is spending the week on her tour of public houses in New York City. So my father and mother moved to Patterson Houses. Then later on, we moved to Mount Haven Houses. As a lifetime resident of public houses and a firm believer in solutions, and staring you dead in the face and refuse to admit it, New York City House Authority is run like a plantation. All you have to do, and the idea is not do, is turn every apartment into a share and every house development into a co-op. Why is that? Because the vast majority of the people in the United States of North America lives in a municipality where the population is 5,000 or less. That's 76% of the U.S. population lives in a town or village where the housing stock is primarily home ownership. This, if you can pay rent, you can own a house. The only thing you own is that rent receipt. It's based on the structure of the payment. Not only that, that rent office becomes your bank, your insurance company, and everybody who works there, lives there. Because I remember when my father and mother moving past and how all the groundkeepers live in them public housing buildings, and the ones who work them buildings live in them buildings. This also will eliminate the homelessness, because the fact is, on that security deposit, you send the interest. You do not let the interest get compound. So the city owns public housing and sets up a board like overseas, and overseas get OO, NYPD, which create house police to act as their enforcer with the aid of the courts to beat down on people so they can keep on paying rent, which is nothing but sharecropping. If those of us who study the history of the United States since July 4th, 1776, when this country got inaugurated in 1787, after Columbus started its mess in 1492. The best thing you can do right now for public housing is turn it over to the tenants, and we get rid of everybody up there who do not live there. Because I do not need to pay nobody $100,000 a year to manage something, just push some paper around, don't know what they're doing. We will train our own workforce in public housing. Why? Because public schools are located on housing grounds. Everybody who works there lives there. Multi-housing does has laundry rooms. That's a business right there. You got your own insurance company, your own banking system. Also, you control your own food chain because you give a person a fish, eat for a meal. Well, when you educate fish, they eat for life. Once again, New York City Housing Authority is run as a plantation.
Next, we have Erica Overton from Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal's office. Then we will have Vernice Tillery from Wise Rehab.
Hello, I am speaking on behalf of Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal. So I'm Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal, and I represent the 67th Assembly District, which includes Amsterdam Houses Addition, and Harborview Terrace on the Upper West Side, and Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. As a stalwart public housing advocate and a member of the New York State Assembly Committee on Housing, I have witnessed the horrific conditions my constituents and many other NYCHA residents have been forced to tolerate: chronic heat outages, persistent mold causing water leaks, long-term lead exposure, and rat infestations, just to name a few. Persistent mismanagement, the squandering of resources, zero transparency, and more have resulted in these derelict conditions. As part of the conversion process, NYCHA will utilize the RAD capital assessment process to determine the scope of necessary repairs to be included in the request for proposals for each development that is to be converted to RAD or Section 18. In years past, the capital assessment process has been conducted by a third party with a team of outside inspectors determining the capital repair needs of the development. Surprisingly, building residents who are uniquely positioned to testify to pressing capital repair needs are not invited to participate in this discussion. In my district, public housing residents can attest to the importance of inclusion during the RFP process. NYCHA conducted a development-wide needs assessment to determine the outstanding capital needs at Harborview Terrace. NYCHA failed to include tenant association leadership, residents, area elected officials, the community board, and other community organizations with a long history of relationship with the Harborview Terrace residents in the assessment process. As a result, NYCHA produced an inaccurate list of items that needed to be repaired or replaced. For instance, NYCHA said the residents needed new appliances, not realizing that I'd already secured state funding to replace all the appliances in the building. The simple effort of communicating with the tenants and listening to their concerns would have prevented this false and wasteful assessment. Consulting with tenants will allow NYCHA to avoid wasting time and money, both of which are in short supply at NYCHA. In an effort to communicate with its tenants, NYCHA, as a start, must create a fact sheet for residents that clearly outlines the conversion process, the type of benefit they will receive, how income will be calculated under the program, and their rights as a tenant. While I understand the incredible uncertainties and budgeting crisis that NYCHA faces as the Trump administration doubles down on its effort to dismantle public housing, NYCHA residents have rights and are entitled to being engaged in a collaborative and transparent process that respects their rights as residents in their homes. I expect NYCHA to amend its plans to address the many concerns I raised. Thank you.
Vernice Tillery.
Good evening. My name is Vernice Tillery, and I live in Wise Rehab. So I have the amendment that came out in April in 2018, and it has $0 for my building in Wise Rehab. I've seen the amendment dated October 2018, and it still has $0 for my building. The latest one is dated December. It still says 0. So is that going to be changed in any forward-going amendments? Because our building needs lots of things, many, many things. The exterior, and it's a landmark by the Historic Society, but again, the 2 columns in the front of the building, one of them, chunks have started falling off of it. The exterior of the handrail part, there was a large crack from water and just time, erosion. And that was filled in, but it's not correct. My second thing, unless I'm gonna state again, where's the money that's coming to our building, Wise Rehab, in 2019 or 2020? What do we do for funds? We're in Wise Rehab. The second thing I'd like to address is I have a 12-year-old that'll be 13, so that form I received in the mail wanting to know if you have a child between 0 and 5, and I think 6 and 12, pertaining to the lead paint. He's not covered. I put in a ticket because paint is beginning to peel in my apartment, and the housing maintenance came out, did the initial assessment, but no one has come back to address the peeling paint that's in the entire line of the building, from 5F, my apartment, to 1F. The entire line has peeling paint. No one's come back to address it. After you put in the initial ticket with the 718 number, then that's it. What happens now? And third, I have a transfer in, it's active. I'm waiting for an intra in my...
Ms. Tillery, would you mind meeting Mr. Paul, who's going to meet you right on the steps, and he will get answers to your specific questions. Mr. Paul, please come make your way down to meet Ms. Tillery.
I do want to say for the record, though, there is some staff in the Housing Authority that do assist you. I want to say that.
Okay, Andrea Soras from Tab Rehabs, followed by Pura Torres.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. My building management, and by the way, I'm Andrea Soras, and I live in Taft Rehab, and I moved up there in December of 2001, right after 9/11. I was a 9/11 survivor. So my building management, which of course changes every 5 years, and NYCHA, thank God for me, have been very flexible building management and landlord. Whereas while I was out in the private sector, I encountered a great deal of stress when if I had financial trouble or something like that. And so whereas I'll have to review the 2019 plan, and I only heard through the media about the mayor's interest to sell the 60,000 units of public housing to the private sector, that puts, however, those units at risk for Section 8 vouchers and HUD and HPD. HPD already is an agency, and I see Ms. Torres-Springer on the panel. HPD already is an agency of strained resources of all sorts and climates. And whereas it may have challenges, but I would suggest, prayer, forgive me, but there's nothing in a way to ask for apology about. I pray to the Lord, and the Heavenly Father and the Lord Yeshua, the Lord Jesus, are a rewarder of them that diligently seek them. So I found that when this relationship improved, that the horizontal relationship improved, and my building management and issues that I had got addressed because this relationship got addressed, and I respected that, and then I got respect. And so going forward, but the issues again are that to put at risk HUD, these units out to HUD, I found that when HUD came in with my building management back in 2011, I had more problems in my apartment after HUD. They disrupted things that were not subsequently repaired, and they actually broke them in the middle of their inspection. And so I know that there is an annual inspection, quality inspection process with the Section 8 programs. However, I've not necessarily found that the buildings that the private sector owns have really been the better solution, and the issues, definitely the right kind of pushback also should not only be made on behalf of the tenants, and for NYCHA to be responsibly on top of with building management the issues that are happening in the developments, but the pushback also needs to happen against the Trump administration. So I think the problems that revisit that when there's erosion of the quality within the buildings, that automatically there's an assumption, well, we should just privatize everything, and that's been flawed. forgive me, but I just think that it's a poor solution to put over things to HUD and HPD.
Thank you, Ms. Soros. Pura Torres from Wise Towers, followed by Joshua Barnett.
Good evening, panel. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everybody. I wish I could say that there was a lot more residents here. I think, you know, a lot of the residents didn't know what this meeting was about. There needs to be better and clear communication, so, you know, you can really hear what's going on. But because I just found out about this today, and I came running down here when I found out this meeting was going on, because I had no idea that this was all happening, that the buildings were going to be converted to Section 8. I know, like, about 10 years ago, Section 8 had come to our building, was talking about, you know, this was prior recession, was talking about, you know, trying to get the residents to sign on to Section 8. And my worry was that, you know, over time, you always hear, and you can see the articles in the newspaper where they say Section 8 doesn't have enough funding. And so I was worried. You know, I was worried about, like, how was it all going to work? And since then, I've read that it seems like you guys have now kind of put in a safety net, and I'm thankful for that. You know, because there's life changes, you know, a lot of life changes that happen in people's lives, and we can't control those things. So having that safety net is great. I know I'm running out of time, but some of the things that I wanted to touch on from hearing what's going on here is, you know, it does seem like this is a handoff, kind of like, you know, like a baton being handed over to privatization. You know, you guys are handing it over to HUD, but then HUD is kind of like getting ready to hand it over to privatization. And I think that makes a lot of people nervous. Now, I'm wondering if there had been thoughts about other monetizing options. I mean, you know, this past week in the news, they were talking about the city going green energy. NYCHA has so many buildings all over the city: Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island. You know, we are hearing about sustainable homes. Why not put solar paneling on there? Sell that energy back to the energy company. You know, this way also the burden of having electricity for the tenants could be met as well. I don't know if anybody's tried to do a study of that or tried to do something like that, but what about other monetizing opportunities rather than quickly saying, okay, HUD, okay, private companies, come on in? And,
Thank you, Ms. Torres. We'll take a written statement if you have one. Joshua Barnett, followed by Alan Hogue.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Josh Barnett. I'm not a NYCHA resident. I'm actually a NYCHA employee. I've worked in the Capital Projects Division since '99, and I'm here because frankly, I find this whole plan pretty scary, because I think if this privatization plan goes through, it's really the beginning of the end of public housing in New York as we know it. It's not a public-private partnership. The repairs that we're talking about are direly needed. I deal with it every day. The residents deal with it every day. And the cutbacks are real, going back to Reagan, and especially given the savage Trump administration. But it's all based on the myth that there is no alternative funding out there. And there is if we go out and fight for it. NYCHA is mostly a federally funded agency. Congress just approved the most bloated military budget in history. 55% of all federal discretionary spending goes to the Pentagon, but I don't see NYCHA or City Hall advocating for a piece of that. In this city, Wall Street's profits are at a record high, but taxes are at a record low, but I don't see going after Wall Street. We have hundreds of consultant contracts. We don't see the audit verifying that they're cost effective. Development is killing every neighborhood in this city, but instead of taxing the developers to pay for affordable housing, we actually subsidize them. And it's really frightening to see the city and the state cry poverty after the shameless giveaway to Amazon. And this lack of funding and the lack of imagination and drive in going after these kinds of monies is what's killing the residents. And as an employee, I see a real anti-worker and union busting aspect to the RAD and PACT program, because we're dealing with a skeleton staff as it is. We've lost huge numbers of staff since I started in '99. 60% of the people in my department are gone, but I don't see in this program the guarantees that all new hires are going to have civil service and union protection. I don't see the guarantees for resident hiring. I don't see the guarantees that people are going to be paid prevailing wage. As a matter of fact, we've already heard that some of the unions have agreed to sign on at 80% of prevailing wage, and we've also seen headlines about the sleazy company that's managing WaveQuest now. And if this is how the program is starting out, with a 20% wage cut and fly-by-night management companies, what's going to happen to the residents and the workers a year, 5 years, 10 years from now? We really need much more public housing, underline public. Privatization is never the answer. We need more public housing, more public workers, because if this plan goes through, in a gentrified city, there's not going to be any place for people to live. And if this plan goes through as it is, next generation NYCHA is going to turn into next gentrification NYCHA. And we have too much of that as it is. So from the resident standpoint, from the city neighborhood standpoint, from the workers standpoint, let's put aside the idea of privatization and look to expand public housing as something that we all really need.
Alan Hogue, Lincoln Houses, followed by Ronald Topping. Is Mr. Hogue here?
Okay. Yes, I'm Alan Hogue. I'm from the Lincoln Houses, and yes, it is scary. I mean, if you kick me out where I'm going to live, a lot of times when I go home, there's times when the elevator is not working. Is that part of the plan also? I mean, if I go to the store and I come home, everybody downstairs in the lobby waiting almost 2-3 hours, waiting for the fire department. They're supposed to come do repairs. And I got to wait for that. My son's my long-term care. My son helped me out a lot. Waiting for that, I would be in trouble. I mean, in Lincoln, at one time, it used to be rough. It's settled down now. It's kind of looking pretty good. But like I said before, the more people got to come out. You got like tenants in there that do know about it, and they don't come out. We go to the housing meetings, and sometimes we talk about the same thing all the time. And I feel that there's nothing really getting done that much. And as far as work in my apartment, yes, I had peeling walls, but that got better. They fixed my walls up and stuff. But a lot of times, you got a tenant live above you and letting that water come down in the bathroom, and after the house come in there and do a nice job in the house. I mean, it's an ongoing situation. You know, I called the fire department, I called the police department, and I figured they should be getting written up about it. Somebody should be getting written up about it.
Mr. Hogue, Ms. Garcia is coming right to you right now. She'll make sure you get to the right person. Ronald Topping, followed by Willie Mae Lewis.
Good evening, peace and grace. Ronald Topping, Adam Houses, South Bronx. First of all, panel board, we appreciate for you all having these open forums, so that way you can at least have a chance to listen to what some of our TA leaders and tenants and people in the community are saying. Some of this stuff, a lot of it mostly needs to really be heard from these residents. When we have a physical needs assessments, the residents need to be a part of it, because we're on the ground. We know what needs to be done. We know what needs to be fixed. We even have trade people in there. We have some of everything New York has to offer within the public housing development in the largest city in the North Hills of America. We have the people. We have the knowledge. But what's been happening is that we have not been able to get a chance to have an opportunity. Now, you know, you screen things, and it's okay. So you get the best of the crop, and let us get out there and help you. You can't do this by yourselves. We need to go and get Congress to start helping, giving some money to HUD, to fund HUD, and we need to hold HUD accountable because they are trying to run away with public housing in this city and depend like nothing has ever happened, not holding those people in New York City accountable for what they've done and the conditions that they put us to live in. When they built these structures, they did not think that they would last this long. They did not know that we didn't have a ventilating system. This is why you have all this mold, rat infestation, and all of these problems, because they don't think. You can't think for yourself. If you learn to listen, you can listen to learn. This is what needs to happen. We need you all to have a seat at the table so we can voice what goes on. Why do you all take 40%? Everybody's taking from us and pushing us back like we don't mean anything. You don't replace people with people. You replace problems with solutions. You don't do what you're doing. You go into rethink mode and you start to go on these grounds and you talk to these residents and spend some time. Here it is, you got Lynn Patton up here. She's a wedding planner, for my God, Christ's sake. What does she know about housing? What does she know? These are picks by Mr. Trump himself. Why not get a brain surgery? I can use him as a puppet. Maybe we'll get some medicine. We people, let's take this seriously. Stop getting these developers to come in here and build because they're about money. Help us with this Section 3, this 958 compliance, so we can get these rules and regulations the way they're supposed to be. I'm not jumping on you, NYCHA, but I need your help. Without us is no you, no justice, no justice, no justice.
Okay, Willie Mae Lewis. And then we have Hector Vilagro.
To the platform and the people that are here tonight, I'm very sorry not to see some of the other peoples that should be up on that platform tonight, because I also was a NYCHA board resident. So I hope we're not just preaching to the choir. I'm here because St. Nicholas has a water crisis, okay? In August of 2018, 3 people came down with Legionnaire disease and had to be hospitalized. We had 2 meetings. People from NYCHA, the politicians, and the gentleman from the Department of Health. At those meetings, we literally didn't really learn anything except for them to say, we are testing the waters. My suggestion was that they test all 14 buildings, because that's what St. Nicholas is comprised of. But they decided to do 6 buildings, okay? And out of those 6, 3 of them was on 131st Street where I live, but naturally my building, 230 West 131st Street, the Legionnaire jumped over my building and went to 200, and then from there to 129th Street, and then maybe on 127th Street. I'm saying to everybody here tonight that we need to do a rental restriction, because talking to you all seems like it's just talking to the walls. Lead paint is very serious, but also lead in the water. We have to drink this water. We have to wash this water. We have to cook with this water. We have to take baths and showers with this water. And nobody, after all of the things we are testing, came back and had the decency to have another meeting to let us know what were the results of the test. Okay? We are irrelevant, obviously, and I'm coming down on NYCHA because HUD is just now coming into this. I mean, although we were getting funding and it was cut tremendously, I know all about that.
I also know that NYCHA don't spend money where it's needed. They spend money to make photo ops and to have a good thing when they come out to the public. We need help in all of these NYCHA developments. Some are worse than others. But when you're talking about drinking water and nobody has the decency to come back and see us, to have a meeting to let us know what was the results of the testing, and now we have foamy, cloudy water and all of the developments are there in the thing. You turn on the hot water, it's cold. I mean, it's foamy. You cut on the cold water, it's foamy. I'm not finished yet, and
but the time is up, Ms. Lewis. We're going to make sure that we have someone
to come together and let these people know that the lead is in the water in St. Nicholas houses, and if y'all don't do something about it, we should have
other speakers.
And not only that,
Ms. Lewis, we're going to have someone come and speak to you so that you can get a follow-up on your concerns. Thank you. Hector Villago from Farragut Houses, followed by Roberto Rodriguez. We've been joined by our General Manager, Master Chulo. Thank you. Mr. Villagro? Is Mr. Villagro here? We will move on to Roberto Rodriguez from Fulton Houses.
Good evening. My name is Roberto Rodriguez from Robert Fulton Houses. There's many disturbing things I've heard here, and I believe they're all true, but I'm definitely against any move towards privatization of public housing. There's many other alternatives. There's funding that can be, as the gentleman said, can be gotten done. When you have so much of money being spent in the military, over 50% of our taxes go into the military, and you have a country which is now under siege by the Trump administration where they spend 60% of what they collect and put it back into people's needs. That's Venezuela, by the way. So let's get back to something else here. A small example of what I'm going through here in the Tennis Isles is that we have a constant water leak that occurs every time it rains. And it's beginning to express itself in the lumps, in the smell of mildew, and possibly mold that is coming, even after people have put in numerous complaints about this. And one response was, well, we'll have to wait until it rains to find out where it leaks. And listen, I'm not a plumber, but I would think that why don't just not run the water through the drain pipes, as that's where it's coming from somewhere, and then have the leaks detected. But this is a reflection of how NYCHA works. And I'm not so sure that it's, since I'm not so sure that this is just a lack of intelligence, but a neglect, an intent to create situations that lead to privatization, sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Pretty much the way they did when they hamstrung the post office into paying $5 billion a year into a budget for benefits for people who haven't even been born, let alone hired yet, which created a situation where the post office is not always able to provide as efficient services as they do, but most people don't know that. So to the extent that I want to say that I'm definitely against it, there's plenty of funding that can be done. According to an article in the Independent News, this has been going on for decades. I can recall particularly when Big Mac took over. What was their deal? Their deal was the bank says, pay me first before you put money anywhere else. Kind of sounds like organized crime, Goodfellas movie or something like that. So the money's there. And when you're talking about giving billions of dollars away to Amazon, one of the richest corporations in the world, and they're not the only ones. There's many corporations here that have received all kinds of tax cuts and benefits and so forth. That money then doesn't go to the public welfare. It goes into their pockets. We need to stop that. We need to turn that around and say, pay us now. Thank you.
Thank you. Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, followed by Barbara Williams.
Thank you very much. I am Gail Brewer, Manhattan Borough President. I want to thank all of NYCHA for the opportunity. So this year's significant amendment impacts thousands of units slated for Section 8 conversion, 2,000 Manhattan units at stake. I want to be very clear, my main message. I, Gail Brewer, will not support any project that isn't going to be done through a nonprofit community development corporation, period. My understanding that these CDCs are locked out of the PACT contract bidding process. NYCHA requires Manhattan PACT bidders to have compiled a rehab project of at least $75 million to manage the housing. We talked to many CDCs or nonprofit in Manhattan. All of them do not meet those requirements, but they do come close. NYCHA, you must revise your RFP criteria to bid out for smaller, more neighborhood-based clusters and require for-profit applicants to either partner with CDCs or make it just a CDC. I feel very, very strongly about this. Section 18. Along with housing advocates, I am very cautious, but I am supportive of RAD if, due to the mandatory Section 8 contract renewal, if it guarantees permanent affordability. However, federal guidelines mandate contract renewal for RAD projects. No such guideline exists for Section 18 dispositions. NYCHA promised to extend the same RAD resident rights to Section 18 tenants, but permanent affordability is a right that Section 18 tenants will not have. That's important. NYCHA must codify language on tenant rights and permanent affordability into Section 18 projects' legal documents, like the regulatory agreement or document tied to the property that does not have an expiration date. Resident engagement could definitely be improved in general. But with Section 18, the lack of transparency is clear. NYCHA is requesting HUD approval to use Section 18 disposition for developments already designated for RAD. NYCHA should make up this added uncertainty with more communication and not less. Last year, Chair Brezhnev, and I want to thank him for his tenure, he said that Wise Rehab and the Brownstones, and I love those 14 Brownstones, and I love Wise Rehab, are the only Manhattan developments designated for Section 18. However, Cynthia Tibbs, we grew up together, and now she's a resident leader at Wise, and she has received no communication from NYCHA since June 2016, and she has a big mouth, and she will tell you that. Staff from my office attended NYCHA's community meetings for Washington Heights Rehab in November. NYCHA presented about RAB and answered tested questions. Time is up, but I want to just be clear that I think those are the issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Williams, followed by Lorraine Brown.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Barbara Williams. I'm from Polo Ground Towers. I'm here this evening to ask a question that I've asked more than 5 years ago. Why is it that I have a building in my development that when it rains outside, it rains on the inside? The question has been asked, and to today, our last meeting in January, I was told that they've got to get a contractor. Why is it taking so long to get a contractor to repair a roof on a building that is well known what's going on? When it rains very hard outside, the drainage to these buildings does not work. The water comes in the lobby of the building. It flows in the mailbox, down the elevator shaft, or wherever else it wants to go. It's like walking in a children's pool in this building when it rains. The conditions in this building is now affecting our senior center, causing different types of programming that we run there not to be held when it rains. Another area is our children's community center. The warming system for the food that the children eat has been out of order now for a couple of months, with a leaking building, a leaking roof in this building also. no heat. This is an after-school community center where children are served meals before they leave in the evening. Please, we need your help. We need these conditions corrected. There are many others, but I feel that these three areas are immediate. Help us. We need you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Busketh is in the back, and I know you know, but for the record, you can speak to Ms. Busketh, who's all the way in the back, waving her hands. Lorraine Brown, followed by Christine Bookin.
Good evening, Ms. Hudson and board members. I'm Lorraine Brown, Community Board 8 member and RAB member as well. I'm here to address just the two items that are on the agenda this evening. With regard to overcome, how many residents are have overcome over income? And how accurate is this count, and or how were these numbers verified? And what are you going to do to encourage the residents to take more advantage of your self-sufficiency programs so that homeless families can have an opportunity to reside in the NYCHA developments? Now, with regard to Section 18, what is the plan? What is HUD's cost per unit? What is NYCHA's cost per unit? How close are these numbers to HUD's ceiling? It's HUD's requirement that the estimated cost of the in-place conversion not exceed 75% of tearing down the building. Now, once the plan is made and signed off, it is required by the RAB, before this is done, to be at the table. And would you meet with the RAB to go over the renovation plan, the scope of work, floor by floor or section by section? This needs to be addressed and shared with the RAB prior to the RAB vote on Section 18. This is a requirement. Now, would you include these requirements in the plan? Also, too, now once the plan has been signed off by RAB approval and the EIR or the EIS comes out and it's going to cost more money, what is the alternative plan? Should the numbers be greater than, I believe it's 5% for changes? Then the RAB has the right to revoke the previous approval. So I want you to be sure to put that in the stipulation in the plan. And in closing, the residents need to know the details of what happens to renovation in place, or to convert in place, if you will. It is not easy with the dust, the noise, and who knows what's behind the walls that are more than 75+ years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We've documented your questions and we'll follow up with you. Christine Bookin, followed by Zarice Huff.
Hello, I'm from Campos Plaza 2 on the Lower East Side. Many of us in this audience all have similar issues, so I'm not going to run down the whole thing. I'll just do a quick here. When it rains, yes, it rains in our apartments as well. And with water comes mold. And unfortunately, the ventilation systems do not work properly. And with that, we get even more mold. Elevated outage every day. And all you hear is contractor, contractor. So now I'm just going to move on to something else. In 2017, Campos Plaza 2 was given $200,000. NYCHA confirmed that these monies were there. But unfortunately, since 2017, we still have not seen these monies. These monies were to be used to utilize our resident room and make it, I guess you could say, workable for families to come in. We don't have a bathroom, we don't have a sink, and we were given these money by a council person back then, and nobody seems to know where this money is. Now, we don't want you to lose this money too, so can you help us find this money so we could have a resident room fixed? Thank you.
Thank you. Therese Huff.
Good evening, all. I don't see the NYPD on that dais, but anyway, it's all right. I'll talk to the chief later. I want to bring up, back in the summer, NYCHA on our, I'm Campos Plaza 1, the private side, the Section 8 private side, that a lot of people don't like, but me, I actually love. So I want to thank y'all for doing that, because there ain't no way that NYCHA could have ever did what these private owners came in and did to our homes. That's one. Two, back in the summer, NYCHA sent a Mr. Joe to our boiler room to fix the heating. I need you guys to know on record, I don't know his last name right now, but I have it in my office, but I know his name is Joe. He was from the heating system. He was very rude. He cursed me out in front of tenants and everything. That is the problem. Yeah, I get these skilled trade workers. They come in, they work for a few minutes, they come out, they don't work, they're stealing your time. This is where all the money's going. So he was very rude about it. He left the door open, and I asked him, if a kid goes in that room, in that boiler room, and gets steam or die, what happens? He started cursing me out. That's one. My other issue that I have on the NYCHA side is, I came here last year and we complained about the parking on the sidewalk on 641, 643, as well as our park. I see a lot of NYCHA emergency cars up there. People see those cars on the sidewalk and they think it's a walk area. And I'm saying it now and I'm gonna say it again. I hope for the last time that y'all can get these cars removed, because there's gonna be an accident. It's waiting to happen. When you come out of building 643 or 641, or if a kid is running through that park, they're gonna get hit by a car. And when that happens, I'm gonna help them sue New York City Housing Authority, NYPD, as well as CNC. But I'm gonna be honest, you guys are doing your part. You put the gate there, but your NYCHA workers and this Hurricane Sandy people, they're ignoring it. They're still coming up and they're parking there. It is a sidewalk, it is not a street. And the emergency people that's working there anyway, they don't never fix anything on our side. So what are they parking there for? We don't know. But those cars are parked there constantly. So if you guys can do something to help me with that, I would fully appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mildred Martinez, followed by Tyrone Ball.
Hello, my name is Mildred Martinez, and I, as well, live in Campos Plaza. I was the president for 15 years, and I tried to organize the tenant association to make a difference. I truly believe that Campos, NYCHA's people in charge really don't want for NYCHA to be working as partners, hand in hand, in figuring out every development is like a fingerprint. If everybody takes the time to dissect every development, you will find that they all have different issues. Some are similar, but the majority of them are different. If they were taken into consideration and really involved the people that have been hands-on, you would see that it can be a 95-degree change within each of the developments that people work together. I'm motivated. My whole entire building back about 15 years ago, to paint the building from top to the lobby. And everyone in the building cooperated and participated, and the ones to give me the hardest time to get anything was NYCHA. They thought these people are gonna make a hot mess, they're gonna leave this horrible and this and that. And I proved to them that working together, and I gave them my word that if they left the place dirty, that I would get on my hands and knees and scrub it off the floor, right? I didn't have to do that because everybody was willing to do it. Now, it's really sad that we're going back and forth, and this RAB that you put in place that is supposed to be protecting the rights of our residents, it's not really looking out for the residents. They're looking out for NYCHA behind closed doors and trying to force the residents to go along with Section 8. Now, you know it just like I know it, that Section 8, every 12 to 15 years, they have to go back to their elected officials to be fighting for them to refund or provide the fundings to cover the Section 8 housing. It is not fair that NYCHA, which has Section 9, they're not even giving the courtesy to the residents, but pitting the residents against each other, okay? When they sold Campus Plaza 1 to Campus Plaza 2, now they're looking at Campus Plaza 2. They're gonna have a hell of a fight. Because you know what? I don't want a new toilet or a new cabinet that's gonna be looking just like NYCHA material on the backside of the residents. It is not fair, okay? And if you would take the time—
Thank you, Ms. Martinez.
Can I just get 1 second more to say, I would like to know who is the receiver that they appointed?
If you have a question, we can answer your question in the back. We have staff in the back to answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker for the evening, Tyrone Ball.
Good evening. I'm Tyrone Ball. I'm TA President of St. Nicholas Houses, and you've already heard my Vice President and my predecessor. In St. Nicholas, we have a very large, overwhelming problem. Our plumbing is horrible. When you start hearing about salmonella and the leaks, I have a community space that hasn't been open for a month because it's been flooded. It's been flooded off and on. We have great water. We have great water because we have old pipes. I see Mr. Massachusetts up there. I've been trying to contact you, and I've gotten in contact with Rotundi. We're having a meeting next week. We need to have all hands on deck so that the issues could be addressed, so we can actually come up with a realistic solution, and that you guys can actually start doing something that's going to actually be effective. I understand that when they did the Legionnaires testing, it was done for the buildings that showed up, and I'm also hearing that it was one shower head that still had high levels, and you're not going to do ionizers for the rest of the development. Well, the rest of the development needs ionizers. Everybody needs to have everything addressed. Not just the buildings that were affected, but all the buildings. This is very important, and it can't be something that's swept under the rug, and it's not something that we can just go about and think that it's not going to happen. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening.
As we conclude this evening's public hearing, let me take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking the time to be here, expressing yourself, whether you spoke about your single apartment, your single building, or your entire housing development. Whether you're a NYCHA resident, a board member, an employee, an advocate, or an elected official, we are here for a common reason: 175,000 apartments, homes that we collectively need to pay attention to. value, and preserve. So on the eve of a day that many celebrate love, that would be Valentine's Day, I want to acknowledge you, to validate you, and to let you know that your voice and your presence resonates. Let's build a sense of community while we save homes. Thank you. Travel safely until we meet again.